every fight that we've taken so far has been one that we were pretty much on our own. Some of that is that, our teammates are down, but I'm thinking, like, is there a way that we could have dove in there with our teammates and potentially, save them in some engagements? Because a piece of advice I've been giving a lot of people recently is, like, if you've got a teammate who's feeding, well, you got two options, right? And I'm not saying that that's necessarily exactly what's happening here, but let's take the case of, like, this player is just going to sploosh their way into every single engagement. They're just going to hold forward immediately. They're going to run it down. How do you play around a player who is, programmed to do that? Well, you've got two options. You either let them go in and die and play the entire game at a 3v4, or you see if there's anything you can do to make their fight more likely to succeed, and maybe they actually trade, and now you're in a 3v3. And so my thinking going back through this is there a way that you could have looked for engagements your teammates were starting before they went down? Because you're playing smart, you're playing defensively, you're playing to protect your life. And what's happening is that while you, a very capable player, are staying alive, you never have the support to do anything that you need to do, which is get the crab tank up onto top mid. You get like one opportunity to do that in the entire game. And so I'm wondering, like, is there maybe a way that you could have looked for where teammates were going, and you could have maybe, like, tried to follow up with them? My thinking is I would prefer that you be helping your team push into mid right now. Getting control of this area of mid is going to let you, if you win a fight here with this much time left, that probably gives you the best shot of painting this side and as much as you can up in front in the last 10 seconds or so. I don't know if you win this game by just passively painting while your team distracts them in mid, especially since without you, your team is more likely to go down. So yeah, I think one thing that I'm noticing is, in general, you're not taking fights with your team. And a lot of the time, I can look at this and be like, you are probably going to initiate fights smarter than most of the people you're going to be playing with because you're a top player. And that's no affront to any of the teammates we've seen here. They are probably very above average Splatoon players to be being placed in a lobby with you in the first place. But on one hand, like, I would trust, an engagement you decide to take a lot more often than maybe some teammates. But if your teammates are going to start the fight before you can get there, there's already a fight started, and leaving it as like a 3v4 fight isn't necessarily going to help that any. Like, you're going to stay alive, but then that's just a 3v4. And you staying alive and staying away means that the other two players who are now engaged are in a 2v4 instead. So that might be contributing to the opponents being able to hold mid as hard as they have in these two matches. That your teammates are engaging, they're popping specials, they're in the middle of the map at important choke points. And usually when that's happening, you're trying to play very defensively, check corners, and protect yourself at the expense of protecting the teammates who are engaging in that fight. So maybe that's something to think about, and maybe that's something that is working in every other game, that because we're not seeing a win here, and we're not seeing like how this pattern of behavior usually plays out for the whole team environment. Maybe it is that if your team just chills for like 5 seconds and lets you do the thing you're trying to do, you just completely win a fight, wipe the entire team, and move forward. And it's more on your teammates for being impatient than it is for you for not being up there to support them. But there are some of these engagements where I, am looking at that thinking, what would I do in this situation? And I'm like, oh, I'm beelining to help them right now. And in a couple of these situations, you're running up and throwing burst bombs and being really supportive. In other situations, you're painting left pit on Hammerhead and then getting collapsed on afterwards once you have no teammates to help you. So I think that that's possibly something to think about and maybe look at the other games and consider for future reference.
Yeah.
If there's going to be a risk every time, sometimes you do have to go and take that risk. And I think the risk worth taking, rather than dropping yourself into an isolated part of the map, is to take the risk that your teammates have already decided to take, whether you liked them to or not. And that might be the one that's worth supporting in those cases. Because you're going in with a set game plan, like, I need to get the crab on top of bridge. I need to get mid control on Hammerhead. And those are goals that will definitely let you win the game in Snowball. And I think part of the reason that we're not getting to the point where we can do that is that our teammates are going down before it's happening. And there is possibly some support in these situations that could be provided to teammates if we hard engaged when we do have the advantage and fought with them. So that's where I'm at on it.
That's my current game strategy. I do prioritize my own positions and plays rather than watching out for my teammates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something I can work on.
Sometimes being the carry does not necessarily mean being the one on the front lines getting all the kills. A lot of times, actually, the carry comes from the person who's the glue that's holding the team together, that's forcing the team, or not forcing the team, but is giving the team one less objective or one less goal or one less thing to accomplish, right? Most notable example that I'm thinking of in my head while I'm saying all of this, Shaq on FT Win, right? He's there painting the exit path for Kyo 100% of the time. That's the only reason why Kyo loves playing with a guy, right? Is because he's painting the floor 100% of the time. He's playing K-Shot, which is like at this time, right? Playing K-Shot, which is a weapon that most of the people would probably think is more of a Slayer role, but actually playing it incredibly supportively in playstyle. So anytime you can converge around one specific thing you want to accomplish, the better you can do. And that's exactly what we want to do in competitive settings, right? You want to be communicating with your team for everyone to be on the same page, to target a specific location or have a specific plan of action. And the more you can solidify those things if you're in a solo queue game, the better. And most of the time, if you're looking at it from a competitive player's lens, most likely it's not going to be you that's the shot caller, because everybody else also wants to be the shot caller, right? Everyone else also wants to be the one that's diving in and getting all of these kills.
It's a similar situation to like, have you ever watched like really, really little kids play soccer? It's really a fascinating like social environment, because what's happening is every single one of them wants to get to the ball and kick it. And the point in like young soccer metagame that really blows everything wide open is when you get a kid who learns to stand away from the ball in a position where if they get the ball, they can score. And then all you need to train everybody to do is pass the ball to that kid, and then you win games. And sometimes, like, you're the only person on your team who should be getting the ball because you can actually dribble the dang thing. But sometimes the rest of your team is just piling on the ball and like kicking it out of bounds, and it is really not going anywhere. And if you just uncrowd things a little bit and go and do the thing that they're not doing, but support them with it, then that might be what the team needs. So to bring this back around to Splatoon, if everyone wants to call the shots, then 4 different shots are going to be called. But if you look at somebody else's shot and go, okay, I can run with that. Even if it's not the optimal play, even if it's not what you would be running with your competitive team, something that Shai said in the top 500 video that has also stuck with me and that I've reiterated a lot of times is making the wrong decision quickly is usually better than making the right decision but hesitating to do it. And so if my teammate went and made a wrong decision, might be the right call to just dive in with him and be like, all right, buddy, we're in this together. Let's fix this problem. So consider that sometimes, especially with regard to situations where you have an advantage now and you need to keep the pace of play fast. Sometimes you might just need to work with a teammate on a play that they didn't quite choose quite the right way, but that you can maybe salvage. In that way, you can use your superior mechanical skill to, instead of make your own, hyper aggressive plays that might not pan out, you can use your mechanical skill to support somebody else's hyper aggressive plays that might pan out now that you can save them from doing that.